Patrick, Henry, Arthur, James.
Hi.
And Liam, welcome to the Without Limits podcast.
Hello.
This is episode 23, and I'm led to believe, I think it was on Chris Williamson that I heard the other day, that 95% or 90% of the podcasts don't make it past the 20 episodes, or a certain amount of episodes, but we've made it past that, and you guys are the first of us on the other side of that milestone. So it's a big moment for us. You were the person I wanted to get on. He's just here to for us to hit the inclusivity box. But no, for the listeners that don't know about you two, I'm sure many of them do, but Paddy and Liam are coaches at our Stratford gym, and you also have a big influence on our online programs, in particular Gain and the Summer Shred. I think there's a number of coaches within the Marchon coaching team that I'm going to get on the podcast, but I wanted to kick off with you two, because I think you're shining examples of what coaches should be looking to, or who they should aspire to be like and take inspiration from. I think the fact that you guys are very studious, well-travelled, continue to try and refine your craft, I think is something that is dying at the moment in the fitness education space with coaches coming through. So I think coaches can take a lot from this episode, and hopefully there'll be a few things that we kind of steer towards them. But I think the everyday fitness consumer as well will be able to take a lot from this in terms of principles around fitness and things that they should be looking to instill into their weekly training regime. They're the big rocks that can help them move things forward. We've done a lot on nutrition with Liam Holmes over the last couple of episodes, and we've had a lot of people from the fitness space who are great athletes. You two are very accomplished athletes in your own right, but I think what you can come at it with is a little bit more around the coaching side that we can try and leave people with some knowledge bombs to go away and use.
Sounds good.
And I also, I look to you two now as like, I think I sort of handed over the torch to a number of the coaches within the Marchon business a few years ago when I stopped coaching. And I often feel like a bit of a fraud when I still kind of put my coach's hat on. But I think you two are on the ground now, on the front line, dealing with people both in gyms with a flourishing community over at Stratford, as well as thousands of people online. So I think you're a great guest to have on. So that's an introduction. I've said some nice things about you. It's not always going to be like that. We're going to kick things off with the usual question. What does Without Limits mean to you? Patrick, you're under the bus first.
Thanks. So I would probably say for me personally, it's more like my own limiting beliefs rather than limits that anyone else would put. So whether it's, in the recent years of working for Marchon, it's from like a work perspective, from a business perspective, putting limits on what I'm capable of doing or what Stratford's capable of doing, all the way through to, what athletic endeavors I might have. So whenever I reach what I think a limit is, it's just understanding that that's just my own limit that I've put on myself, and there's much more beyond that. Something that Jen said to me a few months ago was, you operate at a new, like, zone 2 is the equivalent of, like, from a business perspective, where you just get more efficient, better, whether it's from a coaching perspective, from a growth perspective within the gym, of you have a new pace that you work at, and that's now your new zone 2. And you put it in an analogy that works for me, because obviously I understand from the fitness side of things. So it's knowing that there's that upper ceiling of not having any limits. Without limits is where I know that I can continually push through that, and I work at a new pace.
Yeah, awesome. I think your growth as someone who understands business over the last 18 months has been incredible, and also your growth as an athlete now, taking on the Ironman, I think is something that I'm looking forward to watch happen. Balancing the two of a full-on coaching schedule whilst maintaining a community, as well as training upwards of 10, 15 plus hours a week, I think is something that is a lot of people aspire to try and do. A lot of people get it wrong, but I think people can follow your journey and take some nuggets from it. So good work. And for you, Mr. Liam Carmichael?
Yeah, I think what it means for me currently is it's essentially just living life on your own terms. Like, it's the whole idea of being grateful for what you have, but never actually truly satisfied. It's like the choosing the courage over comfort. Like, that's why we do hard things. It's why we go to the gym. It's why we put ourselves on these podcasts, because we're always growing, we're always learning, right? It's like they talk about stacking the evidence, and the more evidence you can stack, well, life just becomes a wee bit easier. Like that thing that you thought that you couldn't do, that really hard thing, you've done it, you come out the other side stronger. So this next thing that you're about to do, you can do that as well, right? And the more evidence you stack, it's like you just realize that there is truly no limits to what you can do.
Yeah, banging. Love it. You set this up well, boys. I want you, Pads, to introduce Liam in fact, before we do that, let's do that. I want you to introduce Liam as a coach. What's Liam like as a coach?
So I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, where Liam really excels is his, it's like a client relationship side of understanding coaching from the, the soft skills side, from being able to resonate and, have principles of how you deal with people in a gym environment, whether that's one-to-one, whether that's small group, whether that's large group. And, comes back to like coach-client relationship, what from like a overriding values and principles we're trying to do, both individually as a coach and as a group or as a community. And that he lives his life and his coaching practices very much through those values of, being a good coach, being a good person, like being honest, being vulnerable, all of these traits that we're trying to breed as a culture at Marchon and the wider communities. He is very good at being able to water that down into the day-to-day, into the class, into the hour, into the brief every single time, so that people are constantly then understanding the values, realigning to it. So, it's bringing back that sort of 360 holistic approach of coaching, rather than it just being, this is the perfect way for you to do a dumbbell row or anything like that. It's a much bigger, much wider sort of view that he has on it. And that's why I think his skills and his strong set really is.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you've got a very high level of emotional intelligence, and you also are very philosophical. So I think that plays into the soft skills. And you're a great technician. I think you're, like I said before, you're well studied. But that other side of the soft skills, the stuff that Paddy there mentioned, that doesn't come very easy to a lot of coaches, and it's often missed. Where did you develop that?
I think it's just been a lot of me on my own journey and searching for meaning and trying to figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing, and just going through hard things in life. Like, it's taught me a lot of lessons where I've had to evolve and I've had to adapt and I've had to grow from it. And that's allowed me to then empathize and understand where people are at in their journey, because I've been through that as well, right? Because we're all on our own unique journey, essentially.
Yeah. Would you mind talking through what some of the hard things that you've been through and overcome?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was 15, so I moved to France when I was 15.
Speak fluent French, by the way.
Can you actually?
Yeah. So I moved to France when I was 15. Also, I'm from the East End of Glasgow. Not a very nice place. My parents were just like, no, we don't want this for me and my sister growing up. So they decided to move to France. They threw us into a French school. I fucking hated it. Couldn't speak French. And obviously, like, I was 15, I had all my friends in Glasgow, and now I'm in France in a tiny rural village of 700 people, couldn't speak the language. So that was very hard. So I overcame that. And that taught me a lot. When I reflect back on it now, it's like that actually taught me a lot of the skills that I have now in terms of actually listening to people, because when you don't understand the language, it's like you really have to listen. You really have to pay attention to body language, how the person is acting. And that's how you're trying to understand the person without the words, right? So that has a lot of carryover into to who I am now, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it down here, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Like, both of you have done a lot of traveling whilst coaching. And what you talk about there is like coming up against different languages, but different colloquialisms and ways in which people communicate and different cultures. I think that's given you guys an added level of perspective and depth to the way you coach, which we'll talk about later. But that was a really interesting kind of anecdote there. How would you describe Pads as a coach?
I mean, it's interesting because I've seen Paddy evolve. Also, we used to work together in Hong Kong, and I've seen his coaching journey evolve over the past 4 years now. Obviously, he was a coach before that, but the person who I first met when he arrived in Hong Kong to who he is now working at Marchon is a completely different person. And that just goes to show that his willingness to learn and his willingness to get better and his willingness to improve his craft is second to none. Like, it really is. Like, I look up to Paddy so much just from everything that he's done over the past 4 years. It's been so cool to see. And every coach wants to be like Paddy. Like, it's
Where does that come from, Pads? Because, I mean, the reason I think this is a good place to start is because you two are so unique in this. You know, like I said, there are other coaches within the Marchon team that certainly deserve their time in the seat to have these conversations. But you two are very unique in one, your coaching journey up to right now, but two, you're both, into close to 30s or into your early 30s. A lot of coaches would have think they've kind of been there, seen it, done it, and now it's time to, jump online, do whatever. You guys are still on the ground looking to drive your craft forward, constantly learning, putting in the extra hours, doing the weekends, doing the early mornings, the late nights. The stuff that starts to dwindle once you're a little bit longer in the tooth. And I think you guys are both seeing the rewards now for that work, but it's not common. So where's it come from?
I think it's just we both love it so much. It's like where we both, as most people that come into the industry, is like they just enjoy fitness, they enjoy training, they enjoy working out, whatever it is. But then you then become a coach, as I did, as a way of me being able to train as much as I wanted. Like I graduated from uni, went straight into coaching as a full-time CrossFit coach out in the Middle East. But I saw that as a way for me to be the best CrossFit athlete that I could be. So it allowed me to be able to train 2-3 times a day. And I was coaching, 3-4 hours a day. So I could do as much training as I wanted. I could eat well, didn't have any distractions, etc. But then as I started to move into that job, I was like, oh, I actually love doing this. And then as I started to realize that my potential as a CrossFit athlete is non-existent, as with any athletic endeavor, I was like, okay, I can lean into this because this is actually what I enjoy. It actually took me coming out of the industry to then have to go back into, which I'm very grateful for, is understanding that, no, this is actually where my passion lies. And just as much as I enjoy training and training hard, and everything else that comes along with it, I enjoy coaching people, helping them get better, understanding the detail, being able to translate that detail to someone in front of you, and then working around other people that on the same path. That's then the hunger that I had for my athletic endeavors is now the hunger that I have for my coaching. And then it's just, how can I get better at that every single day? It's like you would look at, your mobility, your leg strength, your aerobic base, whatever it is. You're like, okay, how can I improve just my clarity of my cues? How can I improve the detail of, someone walks into the gym and I have like a low enough understanding that I could speak to most physios about what's going on from an injury perspective. It's like having all of those skills is the same as I used to look at my athletic endeavors.
Yeah, you touched nicely there on a bit of your coaching story and your journey to where you are now. I think both of you have had fairly unconventional journeys to where you are now as coaches, which is, again, is quite unique, because a lot of people think it's kind of this linear progression of do your level 3, do some coaching hours on the gym floor. A lot of people are obviously bypassing that now, going online, whatever it may be. Whereas you guys have had other careers, you've gone into the fitness industry, come back out. So I think your coaching stories are very unique. And I think I just want to touch on it a little bit more. Talk us through yours to this stage, Liam, because you've obviously been a coach not as long as many would expect.
I used to work for Emirates. I was a flight attendant. So long story short, I lived in France. Then I've lived in 6 countries since then. I've lived in Italy, Spain. Then I went back to Glasgow. I was like, right, I'm going to settle here. I ended up doing a job. I was like a salesman. It was really good. They gave me a company car, company credit card. I was making decent wage. But after like a year and a half, I was like, I cannot do this. I could see where my life was going. And I was like, this is not for me. So I wanted to travel more, wanted to see the world. So I got a job with Emirates Airline. So I was based in Dubai. Brilliant job. Like, you literally travel the world and you get paid for it. Incredible experience. But towards the later end, like after doing it for 3-4 years, it's also incredibly tiring. Like, you're doing 18-hour flights, you're landing in place 24 hours, then you're coming back. So towards the end, I was like, I don't want to be doing this. It didn't align with who I wanted to become. I wanted to become a coach. And just around that time when I was in Dubai, like, my life then was a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, a lot of going out, a lot of taking drugs. And every relationship I had within my life, I was just like breaking it just because I wasn't aligned with who I was as a person, like partying all the time. So that's when I found fitness and I get into CrossFit. And it had such an impact in my life. After about a year and a half, I was like, fuck it, I want to become a coach. Because I used to go into my CrossFit gym and I used to look at the coaches and I was like, these guys are crushing it. Like, you go in, your music's on, you're having a good time, like they're actually impacting people's lives. It's like, I want to do that. So obviously back then, to be a CrossFit coach, and still now it's like you just do a weekend seminar, you get a level 1 and you're a coach. So sweet, I've done that, got my level 1, and I asked for an apprenticeship, internship at the gym I was at. And I'm like, oh, I'm not quite sure. Kept persisting. I got the internship, and after it was like 7 or 8 weeks internship, they offered me a full-time job. So I was in this predicament. I was working for Emirates, and when you're working for Emirates, like they're paying everything. Like your accommodation's paid for, travel to and from work's paid for, a very sweet life. I was like, no, I don't want to be doing that anymore. So I ended up quitting that job and became a coach. And then since then, I've just went head into the coaching game and just committed myself to being the best coach I can, essentially.
Yeah, I got asked yesterday by someone who they said they're 40 years old, they're in a fairly stable job. They've done a couple of qualifications on the side, and the question to me, and they wouldn't really take my initial answer, which was, yeah, I think you should do it in short. They were saying, is it too late at 40 years old to move into the fitness industry? What would you say to someone at any age looking to get into the coaching world?
Not at all. Like we've seen plenty of people come through the PFCA that are, like 50 years old, but it doesn't, just because you're not as young as some of the other coaches doesn't impact anything in terms of your ability to be a coach. You, in fact, because you have more world experience and more understanding, you're probably going to be more authentic as a person. That's probably going to be better than the 21-year-old that's just done their level 3. Also, you can, resonate with those people that are of a similar demographic to you. You've got that knee pain and that back pain that 21-year-old doesn't have. So maybe you're able to understand the people that you're working with, the general population that you are most likely going to be coaching in front of you, and you can resonate better with them, have a better relationship with them than a 21-year-old might have.
Yeah, perfect. We've touched a little bit on the travel that you have both done, and I know you came across each other in Hong Kong. So you're coaching in Dubai, you eventually take a job in Hong Kong, and you're in Qatar and take a job?
No, so I was actually back in the UK. So this was before I went out to Hong Kong, I was working back in the UK in outdoor education for a bit. So that was after I'd done a stint in recruitment when I came back from Kuwait, hated it. And then was like, okay, I need to go back into something that is more stress-free. Went into outdoor education for a bit and then was like, nah, this is rubbish as well. I need to get back into coaching. So then I was kind of looking for a way back into coaching and saw a job application. So a guy who I was a friend of, it was a friend of mine in Kuwait, Alex, who was a coach at Coastal with us out in Hong Kong. I was following him because he went from Kuwait out to Hong Kong. He was then put the job application out saying, we're looking for a coach in Hong Kong. And I was like, mate, I've been out of the game for a couple of years, but do you reckon I'd have a shot? And he was like, yeah, put an application in and see what happens. And then we were basically hired at pretty much the same time. So you were a couple of weeks before me. They were looking to hire 2 coaches, basically. Someone else who was in the pipeline was Louis Papp.
I remember that time.
Yeah. So it was all around that time when they were thinking about, don't know if Louis could get a visa or something like that.
It's COVID, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we pretty much joined at the same time.
So
Hong Kong.
So traveling and coaching is something that you both obviously done a lot of. Is it something that you feel has created the coaching standards and helped you to where you are today? Or is it something that, how do you look back on that time?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, You talked about it with body language and being able to understand people through body language because you haven't got the language because you didn't speak French. It's the same when you've got a class full of Kuwaitis who don't speak English. There's no screening process. They've literally walked in off the street and paid for a class and you're like, cool, we're doing kettlebell swings. They don't speak English. It's absolute nightmare. So it's then like, okay, how can I get this person to do something that one isn't going to hurt themselves? They're going to get some form of a stimulus out of the training. These are people that have probably never been to the gym in their life. And they're then like, you're then thrown into a class of 20 people trying to teach them how to kettlebell swing. They don't speak English. It's an absolute shit show.
You ain't selling it to me.
So then it's like, okay, well, that was one element of the job that I enjoyed. But, you have to be so clear and so concise with what you're trying to coach, whether it's using body language, whether it's like selling it with your eyes, whatever it is, to be able to then for them to have some form of an understanding. And without, being book smart with it like we are now, where it's like verbal, visual, tactile cues, whatever it is, you just understand it's like, okay, this person isn't understanding what I'm saying. So then what else can I give them for them to understand? All right, I need to move their body in space, or I need to get someone else to translate for me, or whatever it is. So it, puts you on the spot and you develop that better than any textbook could tell you how to do it.
Yeah, I think you just become a lot more socially aware and culturally aware. And the more because coaching is just your ability to relay information to someone, right? So the better you can understand someone and the better you can connect with someone, the faster you're going to be able to relate that information and connect with that person. And that ultimately what creates change in a person.
Yeah.
Right.
What role has education played in your coaching careers up until now?
Massively. I mean, so yeah, I'll start.
You go, mate.
He's going. So obviously I done the SCA, so the Stronger Coaches Academy. So my first education in coaching was the CrossFit Level 1. And I soon realized like I needed more than that. And I actually fell more in love with the one-on-one rather than the group classes. I could also see that was probably going to be a bit more financially rewarding, especially where I was in Dubai. Like I could build up a client base, etc. Went online and there was like, all I knew was CrossFit. And there was like nothing else except level 2, level 3. I was like, oh, I kind of need more. So that's when I found you guys. And back then the PFC, it was called the Stronger Coaches Academy. So I remember signing up to the mentorship. Really cool. It was like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It was like, we had like Facebook groups and stuff. We're posting videos in there. So done that. And at the same time, like my training was starting to change from CrossFit because I realized that CrossFit wasn't really sustainable. And that's when I fell into like the whole like Marcus Philly functional bodybuilding. And I was like, this guy's fucking crushing it. Like, where's he getting his education from? That's when I went down the whole OPEX route, got all my certificates from them. And then, I think I've read every book in strength and conditioning since then.
Yourself?
Yeah. I think when I actually, in full transparency, I used to educate myself so that I could sound smart rather than actually caring about learning anything. Like I wanted to be able to like give someone some information in a class to be like, oh, he knows what he's doing, rather than actually like caring about helping them. At 21, I was like, I just want to be known as like people to think that he's knowledgeable rather than actually, oh, this is a piece of information that I can give to someone to help them. It was for me. But then as I started to develop as a coach and, start to mature a bit as a person, it was then, I actually love finding out about all of these smaller details and go into the weeds of these different topics. And then how can you, as Liam said, water it down or communicate it to someone for them to understand? Because you can use the big words and you can sound super smart, but if it doesn't land to the person that's in front of you, whoever it is, then it's literally that information is pointless that you know it unless you can give it to someone else.
So funny watching people cue people with like complicated language and nothing changes, but they're like, I've done my bit. I've said something smart. They just walk on to the next client.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your two? Let's move away from, I guess, the coaching and the education side of things and move more towards, I guess, generic fitness for people. What's your view on fitness? What sort of philosophies, first principles as individuals? Let's not talk too much about Marchon here, but I guess your own view on it. Do you want to go first, Pads?
Yeah. I think it's always one of the highlights of my day, just being able to exercise and work out. And it has been from when I've played sports from however small I was. And I think as I've got older, I've enjoyed the mental benefits just as much as the physical benefits. Don't get me wrong. Like I want to be stronger. I want to be fitter. I want to be more muscular. I want to be leaner, whatever it is. But just as much as me ticking a box in training, the benefits that I feel from that of like doing something for myself, whatever's going on hormonally after that, that's just as much that's my philosophy, is more like doing something for myself is what, that's what gets me to do it every single day or to do it every single week. Is just, that's a box tick that allows me to continue to do what I need to do, continue to move towards my goals, continue to feel the way that I feel.
Is there any biases towards a style of training or a way in which a week would be constructed?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously I write and do the GAIN program, and that's a way of training that I've been doing since like 2018. So I've been, if we water it down, it's like, I want to be essentially like a powerlifter. I want to be strong in like squat, bench, deadlift variations of. I want to be doing like bodybuilding accessories because I want to be jacked. And then I want to be an erg monster. So like I want to be able to like rip the row, rip the ski, rip the bike. And then over time, I actually didn't care that much about running. I was okay at running because I did a lot of cross country when I was a kid. And then as the, the hybrid ethos of training has then come in, it's then alongside being an erg monster is like, can you run far or run fast as well? So that's ultimately what gain comes down to. It's like, be really strong at big lifts, have plenty of muscle, look great while you do it, and then be really fit at the same time as well. Yeah, and I train like that, and that's pretty much how you train.
Yeah, it's very similar, and it's interesting because we used to also coach together in Hong Kong, like we talked about. And I remember standing in front of a CrossFit class with Paddy, and I was like, we were doing like snatches and stuff. And we were like, can you imagine we just created this thing and we're just like strength training, bodybuilding, and just getting seriously fit? That's what we used to talk about. And
really, but whilst CrossFit classes were going on.
Yeah. And now we're actually doing the thing that we talked about a couple of years ago. So it's really, really cool. I mean, my views on fitness are very, very similar. Like, I just want to be as strong as possible. I want to be as jacked as possible, and I want to be as fit as possible. And it's the whole idea, like I kicked things off with the without limits. Like, it's doing the hard thing. It's like you're building up that resilience. Like, every time you go into the gym, you do something challenging. That's one thing that you've just, like Paddy said, ticked off the box. You're becoming better, you're becoming stronger, etc. And the more you can do that, like, you then take that outside and you're like, the things that I'm doing in the gym is way harder. So the things outside will be pretty easy, right? So I just fucking love it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you always feel as though when you're brought into a particular way of training that the grass could be greener somewhere else. So like Marchon was born out of all the way back to, like you said there with Marcus Philly, the early days for us with functional physiques was very much like trying to be as strong as possible, as jacked as possible, and ripping the ergs. So when we went to competitions, like the usual functional fitness competitions, we'd always rank somewhere in like the top 3 teams because we were very strong and very fit on the ergs. But as soon as something technical came in or skill based that started to be a little bit more like CrossFit with barbells, I personally would often come unstuck. So I'd always be like, I need to fucking learn CrossFit. I need to learn to cycle a barbell. I need to learn Olympic lifting. And I could never really stick to it for long enough where I was actually able to put kilos on the bar that were, to drive a PB or top numbers up. And it's funny how fitness has kind of come full circle back to now people just wanting to be really strong and jacked and be able to run, which positions us really nicely. I think that's the beauty of it. I think where we sit as a brand and a collection of, I guess, a collection of our minds and philosophies towards what people are looking for does actually fit what the science and data shows is what people should be doing, is try and preserve as much muscle mass as possible, and build VO2 max as fucking high as you can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What's the current state of play then, do you think, for people looking to get into fitness? What are the common struggles you come up against when people walk into the gym at Marchon Stratford? There's obviously the usual things of consistency and time management and those type of things, but what do you think is missing in people's, I guess, view towards fitness by the time in which they get to the front door?
I think it's there's just so much noise. And with the power of social media, with TikToks, with Instagrams, with influencers plugging this, with, do this program, this way of eating, it's very polarizing because that's what gets views and that's what is clickbait. People they don't know what, like, the foundations or what they should be doing, when we know as like well-read coaches what they should be doing, and what all the research looks into is people should be doing strength training. People should be doing some form of like aerobic activity. People should be trying to eat majority like good quality whole foods and reduce the amount of processed foods that they're eating, sleep well, hydrate well, manage their stress. That's literally it. But people are like, I need to eat foods that are only red. I need to do workouts which are 45 seconds of super high intensity and then 15 seconds, because the moment I do 50 seconds, no, it has to be 45 seconds and then 15 seconds of rest. It's like these polarizing ways, and people get bought into it because they might see someone with a set of abs or they see some results or whatever it is. But there's so much noise and so much confusion around it. People just get lost in the weeds of what's in front of them. They need someone to kind of like strip it all back and say, no, here's the pathway. This is all you need to do. But there aren't enough people singing off that hymn sheet, and there are too many people just trying to do the next fad diet or the next like cool thing to do with their fitness.
Would you have anything different to say, Liam?
No, I think, it's just like you said, it is very confusing out there for most people. And I actually think when most people turn up to the gym, they're just turning up to the gym because other people turning up to the gym, and no one actually asks them, hey, why are you coming to the gym? And as soon as they get asked, the classic answer is, oh, I just want to lose weight. But maybe not. That's not actually the goal. You're just losing or saying that you want to lose weight because everyone else is saying you have to lose weight. And I think that's what we do very good here at Marchon. Is like we take someone in and we actually sit them down and have a conversation, and we start to dig a bit deeper. Okay, that's a great goal that you want to lose weight, but why do you want to lose weight? Oh, I actually just want to feel more confident around my kids. I want to fit into my nice clothes. Okay, sweet. They're really good drivers. But if most people are coming in and saying, oh, I just want to lose weight, but they're not tying anything to that, that's why they don't last, right? They just turn up and it's like, oh, I've tried this for a couple of weeks. It didn't work. But actually, it probably could have worked if you just committed to it a bit longer. But like Paddy said, it's like the whole grass is greener mentality. You always think there's something better out there because of social media, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I referenced earlier that I think you two are two coaches that everyone should certainly follow for your views on fitness, but also how you go about life. But you've got fairly modest followings, right? Like your voices are consistent and they're loud to your audiences, but they're not loud in the grand scheme of the influencer world or social media.
We're trying all.
No, I know, but does it frustrate you that there are all these people then with bigger followings saying random shit? I mean, I was going to pose the question, why should people listen to you? But I think we've answered the question. Like, you're well read, you followed the science, and you also have decades of experience and just of evidence that you've stacked to suggest this is the way you should train. You're both jacked, you're both extremely fit, very much in the top percentile of athletes, let alone coaches. But it's got to be frustrating for you as coaches that are on the ground with people who have much bigger followings and much bigger influence, quote unquote, that make your life a lot harder when people come to your door.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I've never actually thought about it in that way. I think what I'm trying to do with my page is trying to provide as much value as possible. Right now, that value can be, because a lot of people, when they look at Instagram, they're just looking at followers and they're just looking at likes. If that's your measurement of success, well, they're fucking crushing it. 200,000 followers, 500,000 followers. But then if we dig a bit deeper, what are they actually doing? Are they creating impact? And one of my missions is to create impact through health and fitness. Now, to do that, it's about providing value and it's about connecting with people. So even if you've got 500,000 followers and I've got 4,000, if I feel I'm doing a better job through impact, value, connection, and education, I feel like I'm doing a better thing than them.
Yeah.
Very similar. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I do get frustrated with it because as much as you want the audience that you have to have lots of value and to, come to your page because they're like, that's going to be a great source of information, or like, I value the content. At the same time, you want to have more of that audience to do it. It is very easy to get, again, to be frustrated with the size of people's followings. But then when you take that thought and you strip it back down, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. That actually doesn't matter because what they're doing is not the same thing as what I'm doing. And we talk about it so many times. It's like, be well known, not known well. So is that the right way around? Mm. Yeah. So it's like having a massive following, but it's all, blokes in Brazil double tapping your photos of you with your rig out? Or is it like a core group of coaches and people that are serious about their health and fitness, or people that want to get better with their health and fitness, that find the content that you do valuable, that enjoy, hearing your authenticity when you talk about X, Y, Z? So that's the types of followings that we're trying to breed. And if it means that we've got small followings that way and it takes us a really long time to get to X or get to Y, so be it.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And it's such a good point for any coaches or people looking to build a social media following, a credible social media following, to take on board. The idea that whether you've got 1,000 followers, 5,000 followers, that you've actually got good interaction. They're following you for they're following you for the things that you're actually trying to monetize. Like if it's coaching, right? They're following you because of your coaching. There's far more power in that than following you because you're trying to monetize your coaching, but you're actually always getting likes on the fact that you've got a great rig. Yeah. I know I'm a fine one to talk, but no, I think that's a really, really good point for a lot of coaches listening in. What do you think? I mean, I'm kind of bringing it back to coaching here. Then, what do you think the current state of play is for coaches and education? Why do you think we're missing a trick? I know we're obviously all involved in the PFCA. you two play a very big role in content creation, in delivery, in being the beacons for aspiring coaches and coaches to look upon as to what is possible. But I feel as though at times we're often fighting an uphill battle. We're making a lot of progress in terms of bums on seats with our courses. Our seminars are well attended, but it's still, I think, a drop in the ocean for where the industry's at. What do you think the current state of play is?
I think it's confusing. Same whether you're trying to go to the gym or you're trying to be a coach, it's extremely confusing. Like, there isn't really a set pathway. And I obviously experienced that as well. Like, coming from my background where I wanted to change career, it was like there's not a clear pathway like other jobs or other careers where you start here, do a couple of years, and then you work up. Like, there is, but you need to dig deep to find that information. I also think currently people want to jump straight online because they see everyone else online and they see everyone else making money online. It's like, oh, I'm just going to go and do that. But actually, really, successful coaches online, if we actually strip it back and look at where they started, most of them started in the trenches. We talk about that concept of putting the hours on the gym floor, getting to know people, getting to understand people, understanding program design. And then maybe if you think, well, this group of people, I can't impact them anymore, I want to move online, sweet. But most people miss that integral step. They go from, 1 year coach on the floor to then trying to do an online business. And an online business is incredibly hard. People think it's easy. Like, people think it's going to be you sitting on a laptop in Bali drinking cocktails. It ain't that. It's bloody hard. Like, if you're on your Todd and you're on your own and you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to compete with everyone else out there, very hard. Also very lonely.
Right. So yeah, completely agree. It's like, it's glorified in the industry to like, oh, you've made it online, but I fucking hate doing that. Like, you're doing back-to-back Zoom consultations all day. You're writing programs non-stop. Don't get me wrong, I love programming, but when you do 6 hours of programming a day and then you have to come back and do that every single day, that's pretty bleak existence. So I'd rather not do that personally. But I think that where people are going wrong, I think that people get into the industry for the wrong reasons. I think people don't understand their why behind why they're becoming a coach. And it's because, I don't want to like hurt anyone's feelings, but they're depressed or they're upset in their current role and they think that they're going to enjoy being a PT more because they love working out. Don't get me wrong, that's the exact same reason that I got into it. And my love for coaching developed over that time. But if you think that it's going to be easy because you enjoy lifting weights, you let me know how it goes when you coach, 40 hours a week of PT, you'll be absolutely rinsed. And you need to get into that industry because you love it. And I think that people get into the industry thinking that it's going to be easy and that they can do it just because they love doing bicep curls. But you need to have a lot more substance to it. So I think people aren't then going and educating themselves beyond their level 3. They're just scratching the surface and then they think, oh, that'll do. And then you've got this massive pool of PTs that are just worth nothing. Not worth nothing, but like aren't adding much value to people's lives. They're just going through the motions, ticking the boxes. And what we're trying to create is this is a career that you can create for yourself and you can really impact people's lives massively. Like we were talking about this morning, the amount of money that, some of these people have spent on their health and fitness, but what they've got in return from that is crazy in terms of the difference in their life. But people don't take it on themselves as coaches to then be like, how can I be the best version of myself as a person, as a coach, to make people the best versions of themselves? And it's just like, I just do the PT course and that's enough. And it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we referenced this morning, like you said, members of the Marchon gyms that have been with us for over 10 years. Now, if we were the same coaches now as we were 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to retain them that long. And just as they get better, they get fitter, they demand more from their fitness, their lives become more demanding and challenging. And so the way in which we manage the frequency of training, the intensity, what it means to them has to change. And that requires a more sophisticated coach. So that's why we're so heavily investing into both time, energy and money every week as coaching teams with our CPD. What role has role models played in your coaching career?
Massive. It's the same thing with having mentors and anything, where when you're building your own identity and when you're stacking evidence, as Liam said, when you're, building your repertoire and understanding things deeper, you don't have, when you're new as a coach or you're new in anything, you don't have your own voice. You're just, figuring things out as you go, and you don't necessarily think, oh, this is exactly how I feel about something, or this is my methodology, or this is what I believe in. You're kind of just going through the motions and figuring it out. You're consciously incompetent, but that's where role models play a massive role, or mentors play a massive part in you having some form of a guiding light for you to be like, oh, I might get lost in what I'm doing. And then I just come back to realigning with my role model, realigning with my mentor. And that is kind of like your North Star, and you will pick up mentors and role models along the way. But that's very, very important for you to have throughout. And, we talk about him on a weekly basis, but the guy who we learned from a lot, Ed, who you've been on his podcast, Ed Haynes, who coaches who owns Coastal Fitness out in Hong Kong. He was very much a mentor and a role model to us in terms of principles and values and methodologies over, this is a great exercise or whatever. It's like stripping things back and being that North Star, not just as from coaching philosophies, but also personally as well, to then, allows us to then create our own voice and make decisions for ourselves, which is ultimately what we're starting to do now. And is like, what's our identity of fitness and what's our identity of coaching, rather than just regurgitating what we've learned from. But without those mentors or role models, when you're starting, it is difficult for you to be able to, find your own voice.
Yeah, I think love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, personally, I've been really lucky. Throughout everything I've done in life, I've always ended up with really cool people doing really cool things, and they've always helped me to become better. Whether that be whatever job I've done, even when I look back when I was like 15, 16, all the way up into my coaching career, I've always been surrounded with high performers and people that are absolutely crushing the game, and they've helped me try and crush the game as well.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up Ed, because if it wasn't for Ed, you probably wouldn't have got a job here. I think at the time, it was obviously the pandemic, right? Paddy had come back to the UK, sent me a message saying, "Look, I'm stuck here. I think I can't get back to Hong Kong. Just wondering if you've got any jobs, mate." It's kind of vibes, and I get those messages obviously quite frequently from people, and I clicked on his profile and saw that he was a coach at Coastal. Now, Ed's someone I've got a lot of respect for the reasons you mentioned. I think he does things very well. I think his mentorship and what he's grown there from a product first standpoint with the coaching product, I think is something that really resonated with us. And that's ultimately why I gave you a bit more time of day. I think obviously then upon the first meeting, it was clear that there was some real substance to who you were and what you could offer us. But I think if it wasn't for that initial seeing Coastal in your bio, you just would have been one of many people reaching out to me.
I had nothing on my CV. Like, that was something that you and Jens would banter me about, is like, we have coaches all the time that come in and have got every course. You've got literally nothing. You've got like your level 1's run out. You haven't even done a level 3. Like, what is there to you? And I was like, I don't know.
Give me a try. What was very apparent is that, like you said, you bought and done all the OPEXs. He was just learning secondhand of courses that other people have bought.
Buying PDFs.
So on his CV, it literally had an expired level 1 and nothing else. But he's like, I've done all the OPEX stuff and this and that, but it was kind of secondhand. Anyway, we're here now, Pads. Okay, moving. Look, Hong Kong was obviously a big influence on both your careers. It's where you two kind of came together. Like I said, the tutelage under Ed Haynes, both in Coastal, but also what you're doing online with the process programming. I think that gave you both a good understanding of the in-person coaching as well as online. So I think that gives you a lot of authority to speak to both being an in-person coach and online coaches, because you've had an experience of both of it. Pad, you then came over, helped us get started with the Marchon Stratford gym. You've been running that as our head coach for the last 18 months. And more recently, Liam, you joining in January. When you dropped me the message to say, is there an opportunity? We fucking celebrated. We were breaking out the red panties. It was something that we've had our eye on you ever since the SCA days. So let's go individually. What were your thoughts on, bring it about Marchon a little bit more now. What were your thoughts on the brand, the coaching, what it meant here from the outside looking in?
So we had followed Marchon for a while. Back when you were in the small Harpenden space doing strong fit, like shitloads of sandbags and sled pulls and stuff like that. And then, Soup Gang, we've followed like OG OM back in the day. And Marchon was always like somewhere that we thought would be a very cool place to go and work, because there weren't many places in the UK that were doing it like you guys were. And we, when we started to understand and develop as coaches and then want to have a little bit more identity, Marchon's and, the performance pro methodology of like ready for anything, being strong, being fit, being an erg monster was something that we were both, that was like we've talked about already, is like that was our philosophy of fitness and how we wanted to train individually, but how we wanted to train other people as well. And what we think most people needed to be doing. They don't need to do like WODs. As much as WODs are fun, like you can do like monostructural conditioning and get super fit. You can get really, really strong with key lifts. You can get lots of muscle with bodybuilding accessories, and people don't really need much more than that. And that style of training was like, oh, Marchon's doing it like that. I could live out exactly how I want to train and then use that as a way to coach people as well. But it was then coming into Marchon at the time, it was when you guys were starting to dabble in a bit of CrossFit, and all of my coaching experience had been through CrossFit. So I was like, I can come into Marchon and help with development of CrossFit, because I have lived and breathed it for X amount of years. I'm a great CrossFit coach, and if the goal is for them to start to move into that, I can be kind of like the someone to bounce ideas off, etc. I know that you had started buying the podcast equipment stuff as well, and I was a co-host with Ed on his process programming podcast as well. So I basically gave you a little tick sheet bullet point
pitch deck.
Yeah, I was like, here's what I think I can add value to. One was like CrossFit space, 2 was podcast, 3 was, and here I am, come full circle, and then 3 was WOD Up, because we use WOD Up and you use WOD Up as well. And I, obviously might not necessarily be the biggest pull for you, but there were obviously some tick boxes in terms of these are things that I think I can add value to. But ultimately it came down to the way that you guys go about training or went about training and coaching people was what resonated with me before I kind of knew that's how you guys trained. So then it was like, okay, you're on the same path as I am. That would obviously be a really good fit. And it was. And is.
And is. Still is. Yeah, I guess for me, it's like, obviously I've followed you and I've followed the brand for a very long time. And it was just this whole essence of just living a life without limits. Like, I was looking at it from an outsider. It's like, how are these guys doing the things that they're doing? Like opening multiple gyms, like the online side of things is absolutely crushing it. And obviously I'm getting the inside scoop from Paddy as well. And I'm sitting there like, fuck. And obviously I'm in Hong Kong and we were doing good things as well, but nowhere to the scale that Marchon was doing. And I was like, I want to be doing that. Like, I want to be growing like Paddy's growing. I want to be challenging myself. I want to be living a life without limits like everyone else is doing over there. It's time for me to jump ship. And ultimately here I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of the best things that happened to us, because it's allowed the growth of Stratford, right? Like for me personally, having, and obviously Jade and Danae play a massive role in this, but having a gym an hour away that I play very little role in, and I have done since the first couple of months is largely unheard of. But I think that's a lesson for other gym owners or people even in any business, where if you can attract that kind of talent through a shared alignment of values primarily, and also just a big enough vision that you guys can fit your own personal, aspirations within the vision of the company. I think it's an important thing for gym owners and business owners to maybe take note of. So that's kind of a perception on the outside in looking in. Once you became part of the community and started to work with the members and things, did perception quite equal up to reality? How's your experiences been over the last?
I I don't know. I don't think I necessarily had any like preconceived ideas of what it was going to be. I think I thought that, for me specifically from my side of things, I thought that my role was going to be more head coach, and I'm obviously that's my title, but I'm more or less run the business with, you and Jen sit above in terms of this is the path you need to take. No, we're doing this, we're doing that. But ultimately the action and the operation comes down to me. So rather than it necessarily being a head coach, it's more that I pretty much run Marchon Stratford from a business perspective. So then that's what changed from what I thought I was going to be, or I thought I was going to be. Not that there's anything wrong with being just a head coach, but I thought that it was all going to be about coaching and building a community. But really what majority of my role is about growing the business and making sure Stratford can be the best and the biggest that it possibly can. And I think that was probably something that I wasn't prepared for, but have loved having that because it was an area that I had to grow exponentially for. Obviously I've grown loads as a coach as well, but that's what's really changed over the last 18 months and a little bit more is what I've had to take on from a business perspective. Because I always wanted to open my own gym. I don't need to because I've already opened my own gym, but without the financial risk. So thanks for that. I just get a nice salary at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first arrived, it just confirmed that like things just move at a very fast pace and like no one hangs around here. It's like shit's going to get done and shit needs to get done now. And it's like, that's credit to you and that's credit to Jen's and that's credit to the leadership team where it's like, we've got this vision and we are not stopping. We are going to continue to go. And that's what I'd seen from the outside looking in. And then when I got from the inside, I was like, shit, that actually confirms like this ship is a rocket ship and it ain't stopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, sorry to cut you off, but also just to the skills that I've acquired over the past couple of months, in terms of the skills that I've took from Paddy in terms of like business, sales, etc., has been really rewarding. Like I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I think that really is the key, right? Like for us, if we're really like our goal is to really change the face of fitness, right? In this, where we can influence it in this private sector with gyms and online coaching. For us to really do that, and the time that we've got available to us on this earth, like we have to fucking move fast. And what enables us to move that fast is when you start to bring together these different minds, the work ethic that we all have now combined, the skill set, the expertise that you guys bring in that we didn't have, the gaps in knowledge, that then creates this melting pot of talent, which enables us to work at a real speed. And if the stuff that we don't know, we can work it out. And we know that the risk to trying to work stuff out, failures are just going to become lessons. There's nothing that's going to like stop us getting paid at the end of the month or put food on the table. So really it's just a case of get our heads down and crack on with it.
Yeah.
You guys have obviously had a huge influence in our online business as well as what we're doing within the gym. More recently with the Summer Shred, and I think we launched Gain. When was it?
It was Jan last year.
Okay, nice.
So it's coming up to a year and a half.
Nice. So let's talk just to Summer Shred. That's I guess the most recent. And I had Liam on the other week and we spoke about we introduced that, well, you opened that podcast with some of the common things that he's seen people overcoming and struggling with. From a training standpoint, and then we've touched on kind of principles and what we would put in a training program, but from a training standpoint, if people are looking to get in shape, what are the things that you were thinking about with the Summer Shred when you're formulating that training program?
I think it's like everything we've talked about is getting as strong as possible. It's trying to put as much muscle mass on your frame as possible, but it's also not neglecting the conditioning side. So building that aerobic base. And when you take those three principles and you melt that into one pot, it's incredibly potent. And I think that's what a lot of people have experienced with the Summer Shred. We had over 600 people, and how many new people to Marchon?
450.
400 people have now come into the ecosystem. They've done 8 weeks of intentional nutrition and also intentional training. And they've come out the other side and like, oh my God, like I'm in the best shape I've ever been. I'm feeling great. And I'm also getting stronger and I'm feeling fitter. Like and it's not rocket science. Like we say all the time, like Paddy was talking about, it's just the basics. But where people go wrong is that they don't commit to anything. Like getting strong, getting fit, etc. takes time, but you have to commit to it. And like we talked about before, people do not commit to it because they think the grass is greener elsewhere. They see something sexy on Instagram. Look, fuck, this thing that I'm doing right now, it's not getting me where I want to go. I'm going to jump. And that's why people change gyms and they just go round in this circle. We call it, Liam Holmes calls it the hamster wheel of the diet, where people are just constantly on this hamster wheel, just chasing their tail because they're not actually committing to anything.
Yeah, some of the results that I've seen reported in terms of, I mean, you probably know better than me. What are the biggest losses of body fat that we've got on there?
I mean, I've seen one guy yesterday, he's lost 11 kg.
11 kegs, yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Mental.
And I said this to Liam because it isn't rocket science what we're saying. Like it's the same. It's the same thing. I mean, obviously we branded the Summer Shred really cool. We marketed it really well. I think our price point was fucking incredible for it. It was a really compelling offer for people. But what people now experience is probably life-changing transformations just through progressive intentional strength training and putting themselves in a calorie deficit that is quote unquote sustainable, but that is, I suppose, manageable for the 8 weeks is probably a better word to use. What do you think makes, you reference kind of squat, bench, dead. I think we talk more about the sort of patterns and exercises. What do you think makes those patterns or moving so impactful for people?
I think it just, without, saying functional too much, they are functional because you are using so many compound movements, so many muscle groups all at the same time. It's very difficult for that not to carry over into anything or everything that you're doing, whether it is looking better, whether it is being able to pick your kids up off the floor, whether it is being able to run for the bus, whatever it is, you do those potent movements, you're going to improve. Like I was literally talking to my girlfriend Kiara last night. She has been doing some weightlifting, just Olympic weightlifting. She's doing a lot of squats, a lot of pulls, a lot of Olympic lifting. She did the best strict pull-ups, 3 sets of 10 that she's done. She hasn't done pull-ups for 8 weeks just because the movements that she's doing are potent. It's like you can't get better than Olympic lifting, than squat, deadlifts, presses. There's a reason why general physical preparedness, people use that and have used that since day dot, because they are so good at being able to build this foundation of strength and of fitness and of muscular endurance that you need to be able to express whatever it is that you would want to outside. So then we're just giving people the structure, the plan, where if you follow this to the letter, there's no two ways about it. Even in a calorie deficit, you're going to get stronger. Even in a calorie deficit, you're probably going to build a little bit of muscle or hold on to your muscle really efficiently, versus you doing something else that be because I'm in a calorie deficit, I've got to train, I've got to burn more calories, or I've got to do higher rep ranges. It's no, just keep your training the same. Keep your intensity the same as you would normally. Maybe adjust the volume slightly, which is exactly what we did on the Summer Shred when we wrote it. We were like, cool, they probably can't take aggressive rep maxes for the entire time. So we're going to have to manage those as we go. But ultimately, everything else is the same as how we would write the game program, which is getting people really strong, getting people to build lots of muscle and getting people fit at the same time. So
if we give some people some practical things to take away if they're not on one of our programs, which they should be, but if they're not, we're looking at what we're saying, a 5-day program for most people. Obviously context, individual differences, work commitments, family, previous experience of training is going to play an important role. But I think it's fairly safe to say that most people that look to the Marchon, fitness part of the brand as inspiration should be fairly bought in and sophisticated and wanting to try and train 4 or 5 times a week. I think, we're people that train probably upwards of 5, maybe 6 days a week in some capacity. So I think if you look to us as something you want to, or our training is something you want to try and aspire to be like, somewhere between 3 and 5 is probably the sweet spot. More towards 5. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at a 5-day week, so we've got squat, bench, dead. Are we building our strength days around those 3 key lifts?
Yeah. And variations of, So how we run or how we write the Stratford program in-house is literally how we would recommend people train, 90% of general population. Even if there are people that want to go and do high roxes or want to run a half marathon, people that have slightly higher athletic endeavors, everything else is the same. So it's 3 strength sessions, a lower or slower intensity conditioning day, and then a more sort of moderate, higher intensity interval conditioning day. If you built around those 5 days within a week, you are going to be ticking so many boxes, more so than anyone else. And then how you split those up in terms of the strength days is, up for lots of debate. In Stratford, we do 3 full body strength sessions because various reasons, one of which is just availability for people. Some people just can't get to the gym on a Monday. So if we do legs on a Monday, they don't get any leg training in for the rest of the week. So we create that full body split. Also, the training age of the people that we've got in the gym, they're probably better off doing 3 full body sessions than they are dedicating, 15 to 20 sets worth of lower body, because they're not going to be able to walk till Thursday. Whereas people that have a higher training age can probably adapt to that volume a little bit better. So general rule would be 3 full body strength sessions, a slower pace conditioning, and then a faster pace conditioning. But on the game program, we split squat, bench, and deadlift, or variations of, over the week, and then tailor a lower body day around the squat, an upper body day around the press, and then usually a full body day around the hinge or the deadlift, or we swap over the lower body and the full body with that, just because it allows us to distribute the fatigue over the week. Because again, when we're talking about our typical user, these are people with a higher training age. They're not like complete newbies. So they can probably go a little bit harder on the squat. They can probably go a little bit harder on the deadlift. So we then need to be conscious of how we're managing that over a week. So then a lower body, an upper body, and a full body work really well for us on the game program.
You mentioned there the fatigue component. What's your views on then rest days?
Did a post on this the other week, didn't you?
I did a post on this. I guess it's like the whole idea is, I always go back to the concept of the stress plus rest equals growth, right? So it's like, as humans, we're really good at stressing ourselves out. We're really good at coming to the gym, right, and doing the physical activity. We're also really good at stressing ourselves outside of the gym. Where we're not so good at is the whole rest thing. So I think in terms of like rest periods or rest days, what we generally say is like 3 on, 1 off would be a great split. So you're doing 3 days of training, 1 day rest, and then you come back in for 2 days, and that's your 5 days of training split up there.
Yeah, nice.
Completely agree. I mean, like, the difference for me personally, when I feel if I don't have a full rest day on a Thursday, my legs are in the bin on Friday. They just haven't recovered. I'm not able to match the same intensity. Like you were talking about earlier this week, you did a long run on a Sunday. You come in and try and do legs on a Monday. You're never going to be able to manage the intensity versus if you have a rest day and you do uppers on a Monday, because you're managing that fatigue over the week. And that's pretty straightforward for us to just think about, because we've been doing it for so long. You're like, well, my legs are cooked. All right, I'm not going to squat today. But some people might not have that know-how. So us giving them the structure where it's like you do three days, 1 day rest, 2 days, 1 day rest, and you stick to that, pretty hard to mess up.
Go on, there you go.
Yeah, I think what we're very good at Marchon is that we're also talking about the stuff that happens outside of the gym. So yes, the training is important. Yes, coming in training 5 days a week, great. But if we look at that in a grand scale of things, like we look at that over a week, it's only 5%. So we're having conversations at the gym. Okay, come in, train 5 days a week, but what's your step count? Are you using your fitness outside? Are you taking your kids for a walk? Are you walking to work, etc.? And that whole combination of, like we talked about with the shred, with the intentional nutrition, just trying to bring a bit more awareness to people's life outside of the gym. Couple that with good, progressive, structured strength training and aerobic training in the gym, you're on to a winner. And that's why people are seeing such great progress.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you both stood at the front of a coastal class when they were all snatching. When we designed Stratford, we just had this view of all the racks with the cables and people just sitting there doing fucking lat pull downs with their rigs out, living that kind of life. They're conscious of their step count. They're conscious of what goes in their mouth for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're just the level of awareness, and they're using the gym intentionally rather than using the gym as a form of escapism. And it's, I think the concept of escaping to the gym and blocking out the outside world, I'm very fond of, but not escaping to a place where you're not mindful and intentional of how you're moving, what you're lifting, the reps that you hit the week before, all those kind of things that are very important for progressing a training program. And it's amazing to start to see it now when I go there and you see the community coming out the gym with fucking muscles coming through their shirt, with their pecs, with their arms, with their shoulders. The girls looking amazing. It's fucking great.
Yeah. It's a long way from, I was there when we were walking around as a building site where nothing had been fit out, to then, that 8 o'clock class in the morning, there's no one there. And now we've got like 22 people in the 8 o'clock class. It's just like, this is cool.
I think it's such a testament to everything we've spoke about for the last hour, which is from a coaching standpoint and product standpoint of really trying to understand what people are looking to achieve, whilst marrying that up with our philosophy on fitness and being hell bent on making sure that we stick to our values as it relates to training. Because for a lot of people, the way in which we train, even the 3 days on 1 day off thing, the 1 day off thing is something people, they don't want to listen to that rest day. They don't want to pay attention to the sets and reps and the strength stuff because they just want to hit the conditioning day on the Friday because that's where they feel the sweat, the heart rate goes up, the calories burning on their watch, and they're not really understanding or mindful of the long game and what can be achieved in a 12-month period with your fitness, in your movement competency, your strength development, your muscle mass, your body composition, because they're looking for those really quick fixes. But I think that's something I'm so sort of proud of what we've created both in our gyms and online, is that there's, minimum commitments in terms of the time in which we want you to hang around. And that's not for, there's obviously a commercial element to that, but it's very much of like, if we're going to be in this kind of gentleman's agreement that we're going to get you fitter and stronger, we need a commitment in terms of time. We need a commitment in terms of your attitude towards your nutrition strategy. And then we can hold up our side of the bargain. I referenced their rest days. What's your thoughts on this kind of active recovery piece that a lot of people on social media will talk about? You see a lot of people doing active recovery wrong. So for the everyday fitness person, what should they be? Should they be concerned themselves with an active recovery day, and what are the kind of principles behind it?
I don't think I've done an active recovery session for since I was doing CrossFit. I just don't think there's much. I think people, obviously there's value to doing active recovery, but people just don't do it right. And even doing something like zone 2 as active recovery is still going to impact your ability to be able to come and train the next day. Maybe not so much with conditioning personally, but from a strength perspective, I rest on a Thursday. I eat at maintenance calories, or I eat good quality food. I come in on a Friday. The difference in terms of what I can lift versus me messing around, going for another run, doing X, doing Y, whatever it is massive. And people look at social media and see someone training every single day, or they see like Jocko getting up at 4 a.m. and crushing it, or David Goggins running 100 miles every single day. And they're like, oh, I need to do that. And it's like, you could do that, but let's see what you squat when you come to the gym the next day. You better got the empty bar on your back. So it's like, if you just focus on yourself and, like Liam was saying, trust what we are giving you, follow the plan, the results speak for themselves. Like the amount of people in the last 17, 18 months on the game program that have done strength programs before, that have done bodybuilding programs before, that have done push-pull legs, that have never trained this way. And they're like, I'm getting stronger in everything that I'm doing. I'm getting fitter in everything that I'm doing all at the same time. And I feel unbelievable. I look unbelievable. It's like they're just trusting what we're giving them as a plan, rather than thinking I've got to be moving every single day, getting pulled into the weeds of, active recovery is what I need to be doing because someone said it's going to help flush out, all of the waste products that I've got on my legs. Your body's already flushed it out, mate. You're just sore. If your body kept that lactate in there, you'd know about it. Or your body's already got rid of it. You're just sore from the day after. You just need to rest, eat some good food, go to bed, manage your stress, not have an argument with your missus, and you'll be fine.
I think there's like a couple of things that are running through my head right now, but I guess I'll start with the first one. If you're training hard enough for 3 days, you should want and need that rest day. Like if you're telling me after 3 days of decent training that you're still able to go and do all these other things, you're probably not training hard enough on the days you're actually supposed to be training. I think the second thing that was running through my head is that, again, people just use it as an excuse to get more training volume in because they think they're going to lose their gains. And it's like we talk about like deloads and stuff, and it's like it's the same concept. People feel like if they're not doing something, they're going to lose everything that they've just built. That's a complete lie. And the third thing that was running through my head when you were talking about David Goggins and stuff, I think there is this pressure now within the fitness scene that you have to be doing something really, really hard every single day, as in Ironman. Nothing wrong with doing Ironman. Kudos to everyone that's doing it. Ultra is like incredibly
75
cool.
hard.
75 hard. Like I love it. It's really cool. But you don't have to do that. Your hard can just be going to the gym. Your heart can just be having hard conversations. It doesn't always have to be this massive, grandiose thing that you've just signed up to. Just be consistent with your training for 8 to 12 weeks. Turn up every single day. That can be your heart. It doesn't have to be an ultra, right?
That's such a good point. Okay, wrapping it up, I've got a couple of questions that are a little bit left field, but it'd be good to hear your insights. What do you think the risks to everything we spoke about in terms of principles for Marchon programming? Are there any risks you see or foresee? Industry moving on, these 45-second workouts becoming an actual thing. Is there anything that, because there'll be a lot of trainers or people listening to this that train the way we train. They're either on the program or they're already, fairly sophisticated, like I said, and they're adopting that format of, 3 strength sessions, full body training splits, something long and slow, something mixed modal with a slightly higher intensity. Do you think, I know the literature doesn't suggest it, but do you think there's anything that's we're unaware of?
No, I think that there's this famous quote and saying that methods will come and go, but principles will stay forever. And what we're doing is principle-based training. So I'm in no doubt that it's not going anywhere. People will probably move on and try different things, but they'll always come full circle.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's like some of the methods might change. So going into the weeds a little bit, I've said that about 6 times today already. Going into the weeds a little bit with what we're programming on the game program. At the moment, there's a lot of literature around overloading the length and position of the muscle. So making sure that wherever a movement is hardest is when the muscle is stretched. That is shown to be slightly better for muscle building. Whereas maybe a year ago, I might have programmed more 1 second or 2 second holds when the muscle is shorter. Whereas I don't program that as much because there's research to suggest that if you don't spend as much time, then you spend more time in the lengthened position, that's better for growth. That's a method. The principle of progressive overload, strength training, doing like lower intensity, doing higher intensity, all remains the same, but the methods might be a little bit different. So I have no fear that there aren't any risks. I don't think that people might come and go and they'll come back full circle. We'll keep beating the same drum, doing the same things from outside of the gym, from inside of the gym. The methods might change, but principles remain the same.
Very good. There's a lot of stuff obviously going on in the industry that we can't control, outside of our control, outside of our ecosystem, which we can just block out. But there's a lot of things that obviously we can influence, and we have a fairly sizable audience that we that are very trusting of everything we kind of say and do, which is we're very grateful for. So is there anything you guys think we should be doing more of within the gym perspective or online? Anything we could be doing differently?
I think I am always conscious of trying to grow the community as much as possible online, because what we don't want is for it to be, and it's not a cookie cutter program. It's very much designed and written, whether it's gain, whether it's train, whether it's perform, whether it's summer shred, is with constantly looking to evolve that product and the services that we're giving. But what we know is, going back to what Liam was talking about, online coaching is lonely, and people in general want something to be attached to. That's why people attach to influencers or attach themselves to role models or mentors, because they want to be part of something that's more than just themselves on their own. So it's not something that we're doing poorly, but something that I always want for us to improve is to continue to develop our community online by making it more in person at times, or by just doing more from a community perspective. What makes Stratford and gyms like Stratford and gyms like Harpenden and gyms like Wise City House amazing is the community of people. And that's what ultimately gets people to stay, is 1, the results that they get, but 2, the fact that their life and their social life is a part of Marchon Stratford or wherever it is. And we want to create the same thing for people online, so that 95% of the time or 99% of the time they're off in their own gym doing their own thing, but they can come back and feel a part of something that's that's bigger than just them or just their program. So I think that's the main thing. That's one of my main focuses, is to continue to grow the game community and the online community by building better connections in that space.
I think the most challenging thing for us as a company going forward, as it is going to grow and grow and grow, is trying to keep that culture, values, etc. Like that's what every big company struggles with. Like as soon as you start getting past that threshold of opening different locations, it's like, how do you keep that core culture and the same set of beliefs, same work ethic, etc.? I think that's going to be the most challenging for yourself and then for us as well.
Yeah. Such a good point. It's something we think about so often. It's why we're so, people talk from the outside looking in about how Marchon do it. And it's why we always revisit the values, any given opportunity, particularly with our quarterly meetups. We have the value champions. I think if we feel as though the culture is going awry or people are, or we lose our way a little bit, we're very quick to have those difficult conversations with each other. And that's from top down, but also, from bottom up. Everyone's happy to have those conversations and be challenged. I think if ever there's a time where we're not happy to be challenged, myself included, then I think that's where we're going to start to fall apart. Look, I think what you guys have created at Marchon Stratford is incredibly special. We often have, and rightfully so, people drop into London, drop into Stratford, and they're always welcomed by yourselves, but also, Jade and Zoe when she was with us, and Danae. People always have very positive things to say about the gym. So if anyone is listening and wants to go and check out that gym, the doors are always wide open for people. What we've done with the summer shred and gain, I think is incredible. I think gain always teaches around 700-800 people, which is phenomenal for an online program. Makes up a large portion of what we do with the wider group of programs. And summer shred first kickoff was 600. Next one launches on the 1st of July. I think it's been a great episode of just unpacking who you two are as coaches. Like I said, I want you guys to have a bit more of a spotlight shone on you, as I do for the other coaches, because I think you guys are the ones that are really carrying the mantle now for what Marchon coaching is all about, and living out the training principles with our members. So thank you very much, boys. I'm sure we'll do it again. Where can they find you both?
Instagram, Patrick_James_coach.
Yep, same IG. It's Liam Carmichael 90.
Nice. I do implore everyone to go and follow you both. You also for this take on this Ironman. I think it's incredible. I'm watching with, like I said, lots of anticipation and excitement to see how you do. You're going to be the first person in the company to have ever completed an Ironman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice. Okay, I'll take that.
I don't think any of us have. No one would have. Which is that's a big accolade.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be tough, but it's only been 7 weeks now into it. Of a 6-month prep. So already feeling more confident running, biking, swimming. So yeah, it should be good. Aiming for around 12 hours. So sub 13 hours, 12 something is what I'm aiming for.
Nice.
There it goes.
Well, thank you, boys. Appreciate both of you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, boss.